Hi, everyone, and welcome to this episode 10, season 2 of How to Successfully Apply to a Customer Success Management Job. My name is Friederike, and I have been working in the tech industry and in customer success and sales in the last couple of years. And I have been seeing this interview process from both sides. So I was a hiring manager hiring for my own team, but I also was someone that was applying to customer success roles as a manager, but also as an IC, so an individual contributor myself. And for that reason, I know both sides. As a hiring manager, I know what is important to hire candidates for my team, what to look for, what kind of skills, what like to, let's say, values and principles, and how to also design a whole interview process. And on the other side, I know what is important to move from step to step to step until a final offer is made within the interview process. And for that reason, I share these insights with you here. And while I share those insights, I do this within a season. So, season 2 is how to successfully apply to a customer success management role. But even if you're not applying to a customer success management role, you will also learn a lot about the tech interview process. And for several roles like sales or account management, those interview series are quite similar. And only the panel interview, the one that will be doing now, will differ a bit given the specific case study, but I will go into a bit more details about the context as well. If you haven't watched the other episode of this season, I highly recommend you doing that because it helps you to give context to this episode 10. Especially episode 4 is highly recommendable because in episode 4 I go through the 10 steps of the interview process. So you know exactly, okay, what is the panel interview and which kind of interviews come beforehand. So when you prepare for your interviews, you really can go step by step by step through the different interviews and really focus on the videos that are relevant for the different steps for you. But let's get started with this panel interview episode 10. So, what's the panel interview? The panel interview is the most important interview in the whole interview series. It's the last interview normally. There's sometimes a tiny bit of interviews after, but it's very unlikely. Normally this is the last interview. It's the most complex interview. The most interviewers are involved in the stage, and also for you as an interviewee, it's way more. Let's say it needs more preparation, and it's the most important one because normally after that interview a decision is being made if you will be if you will get an offer from that company or if you won't. So let's dive into what this means, what are the objectives, and what you can do to really nail this piece of the interview stage. So let's first go into the objective. So the objective of this interview, I kind of said this before, is finding out, is this candidate really the right candidate for the job? So it will be the final interview. And especially if we look at the panel or if we look what we're doing in this interview, it is around finding out, is the candidate or are you um, able to deliver in real situations? All the other interviews are questions, experiences. So they're kind of subjective because it's all that you tell is obviously out of your own experience. But in a real situation, it shows way more how do you interact. But the same obviously is true, and you will find this out also in my previous episodes, is it is also for you a great step to find out, is the company treating me well also in those real situations. So you can learn a lot about how they treat you and how they interact with you, and also how they interact, does it make sense to you? But on the other hand, it's also for them obviously a great understanding, okay, do they think that you are the real fit and that you can also kind of perform in real situations. What are the participants of this interview stage? So we normally have always the hiring manager. The hiring manager is always there because obviously they're hiring for their own team, so they want to know if how do you perform, how do you interact not only with them but also in a more larger group of interviewers and also with more people involved. Then you normally have one or two customer success managers from the team, so from the team that you will be a part of or will be a part of, but also from other teams. so related customer success management teams that maybe focus on different products, focus on different industries, focus maybe on smaller or larger clients. So these are normally people you also will have in the interview. And then there will be very likely one or two cross-functional partners. Cross-functional partners means people that are not within your team in functional areas, so customer success management, but will be in different functional areas. And these functional areas can be sales, marketing, solution engineering, pre-sales, or professional services. If these roles do not tell you anything, that's fine. I will cover them in additional episodes or like additional seasons later. But in general, these are all roles that are very close to customer success management, and you will also work with them together when you are part of the team. And for that reason, they normally try to find cross-functional partners that you will also interact in one way or the other when you work as a customer success manager within that team. And now about the agenda. So, how will the interview take part? What are the pieces of this panel interview? You have four different parts of this panel interview. It's the introduction round, the panel interview, the case interview, the review of the panel or the case, and the question round. And I will go into all four in more detail. But first, give me a bit of the overall structure of those four pieces. So the first piece is just the introduction where you introduce each other, and it's normally a very short phase, so a short part of the agenda, because normally you know them already from the previous interviews. So this will be only a very short introduction into the panel interview. The panel interview itself will be the the most important point, and it will also be the longest, which is around 20 to 40 minutes, where it's really the deep dive and exactly this key element of this interview. Then you have the review. And if they don't have the review, I would be really cautious because the review, and I come to this, is very important for both sides. And it will tell you a lot about how they treat you and how they handle the interview and how they will handle you when you're part of the company. And then you have a question round, which is very similar to the previous interviews, where it will be around questions, interview questions from your side and from their side. So let's dive in. How I will dive in here is that I will give you tips and tricks, and at the same time, I will explain to you the different phases of the interview. So first a bit of explanation, and then tips and tricks intertwined with those, so you really get the grasp of what you have to be looking for and how you can best prepare. So let's start with the introduction round. As I said, the introduction round is short. It's 5 to 10 minutes most, and it's just about making sure that you're all on the same page, you all know each other. And this is something that you also do in the other interviews. In the other interviews, you just do it one-on-one. Here you do it one-to-many. But normally it is the case that you know some of them already. You know the hiring manager, you know maybe a customer success manager, a cross-functional partner. You met them in the previous interview rounds. So it is just about making sure that if there are some additional people that you don't know and they don't know you, that you can shortly introduce each other. And if you do so, as I said, keep it short. They saw your resume, they know quite a lot of you. They are not the key element or like key interviewer person that is interviewing you, and it's not around you having a large, let's say introduction, but it's just key points saying hi, maybe reviewing and also, like making notes on previous interviews. So you could say, okay, hi, my name is Friederike, for example, and I already talked to A and B in the previous interviews. That was really nice. It was really great meeting them. And now I'm really excited to see you as well or meet you as well. As you have seen probably on my LinkedIn profile or my CV, right? I have been working in these companies beforehand. I did these different roles, and now I'm here. Really excited about the roles because ABC. And I really look forward to this interview process, or this not the interview process, but this, this panel interview today. I have prepared this presentation, so I'm excited to show you. So not totally long and elongate, like and doing a monologue, but just shortly introducing yourself, doing a bit of like referencing to the other interviews, and that should be enough. And if you do this, as I said, introduce yourself short and on point. And the other point is be proactive. And the proactive piece is more something that you can take into account if they don't do an interview round, or like not an interview round, not an introduction round. So if they don't introduce each other and there's one person that just doesn't say anything, you could still say something. So you could, just say, okay, oh, I see, I don't know you yet. Let me give you a short introduction around myself, so like who I am actually. You probably saw my CV, but still, I would love to introduce myself and would be really interested and eager to know who you are and what you're doing at that company. And this shows them you are proactive. It's a very tiny piece of maybe thing that you can do, an action you can do, but customer success managers have to be proactive if they're really good. So if you show this piece of I am proactive and making this introduction, it tells them a lot of how you are and how you probably will be as a customer success manager, which is a big plus. So much about the introduction round. Let's go to the main and most interesting piece of the interview, which is the panel interview or the case interview. So this interview is, as I said, the heart of that specific interview, the panel interview. And the interview or the panel is normally 20 to 40 minutes long, and your interviewers will be your clients. So very likely they will be your clients. There's some cases where they won't, where they're just, let's say, an audience or something that is not judging you, that's the wrong word, but like who's critically thinking and looking of how you're doing things and questioning some elements of it. But normally it will be a role play and they will be your clients. So they will take on different roles as a client. For example, let's say there will be a head of sales, for example, and they will be maybe an account executive, for example, or there will be customer success manager or business development rep, or maybe an assistant. So different roles within a company where they take on different roles, and then you will be interacting with them as if they would be your client. And these are the most common ones that you will see, those simulations or those role plays. And the reason is that they put you in exactly that situation where you will often be within your job. You will be talking with clients. You will you will conducting meetings with them. You will do business reviews. So they want to see how do you do this in a real life situation with clients, and do they feel confident that they can put you in front of clients. And this is the main reasons why they do those more specific panel interviews, to see how do you react, how do you do this, how do you interact with people, and especially with clients. So let me give you some examples of what those cases can look like. So this is one of the examples, and I just read this out loud to you. The key stakeholder of company X, so whatever company that is your client, have changed the company, and now you have the first meeting with them, so the new stakeholders. Show them how you work as a customer success manager with them, what is important to you, and how you make sure that they will reach their goals and objectives with you. What does this mean? It means that you have a client or you just got a new client. They are completely different stakeholders. So you basically begin by zero. And what you do at stage zero is that you tell them, okay, how do I work with you? What kind of activities do I do with you? And what is important to me when we interact and work with each other as a client customer success management relationship. And the key element of this panel piece is it is about, okay, they want to find out how you as a customer success manager do your customer success management job by explaining that to your clients, to your new clients. So it is a lot about your kind of working with clients that they want to find out here. And I can go into more depth about this one, and we can do this in one of the additional seasons, but this would, like elongate the video a bit too much. But think about this case and saying, okay, what do I want to, like, what is important to me when working with clients? So you could, you could do a classical presentation of just saying, okay, I just have a new client. How would I want to work with them? What would, for example, the onboarding phase look like? What would the business as usual phase look like? What would it look like if I'm responsible for commercials? How the commercial piece looks like? But it can also be then the different phases of saying, okay, what do I do? Do I have, for example, if we do the launch of the product, how does the launch look like? Do we have more of a, let's say, enterprise high touch model when working with my clients? Is it more of a commercial, scaled customer success model? What kind of pieces of information do I give to the client? So, I mean, this is a huge topic, and I can't go into here, but this could be one case that you could get. And it's really important that you show them there also like how you work as a customer success manager. And so, for example, maybe one tip for this here. So, if you apply, for example, for an enterprise class customer success management role, then you will be working with enterprise clients. So, if you tell them, oh, we have an education and community here for you, and that's it, and I will just have a touch with you or meeting with you maybe every 2 months, then this won't work. So if you apply for a role that is a very high touch enterprise customer success role, you also have to show them that this is how you will be working with your client. If you're more applying for, let's say, a customer success management role with more smaller clients, where there's a lot of self-service, then have a look that you change your customer success model to some extent to so it matches the kind of clients that you look for. So really adapt to what you're applying for when doing this case study, because otherwise they will have the understanding that you are more able to work with smaller clients compared to larger clients. And if you want to make this change, for example, from working with smaller clients to larger clients, you have to show them that you're able to do that. And for that reason, within that interview, make sure that you do that. If this sounds a bit cryptic because you're very new to customer success and you just want to learn more of how to do the interview process, I do, as I said, additional seasons where I go into detail. But also, you can just send me a personal message or just write me an email so I can go with you into a bit more detail about this here. Another case that is often the case is the create a 30, 60, 90 onboarding plan for a new client based on the product that we offer. So this is similar to the one above, which is more on a very general terms. This is a bit more specific. It's more on the onboarding phase. So especially if you work, for example, as an onboarding specialist within the customer success team, then this could be a case study that you will have. But it can also be if you have more working with a simpler product, where there isn't a whole professional services team, for example, that is doing the onboarding, that this is something where they want you to look into. Then we have another one, which is do a product presentation of a product of your choice. We are your clients or prospective clients interested to learn more about that product or that add-on feature. This is normally a case that you see a bit on the intersection to sales, because it can also be a very commercial task to find out, like do a product presentation and then also sell it to the client or sell it to the prospective client. The nice thing here is that you can choose whatever product you want to. And if you choose whatever product you want to, that's really helpful because you can really, try to find one where you're really good at, and not only good at, but the use cases, why this product is helpful. Because if you do those presentations, you have to make sure that you show them the value and you show them the use case and the benefits of that product. So whatever case, if you do customer success or sales, you have to know this because you have to kind of convince your clients. And so this is one piece of advice. And maybe a second piece of advice for this one is that look at the context and look at what they look for. So if they want you to be a technical customer success manager, then you probably don't have to sell that much, but you more have to explain the details and the technical details of the product. And they want to know that you are able to dive deep. If, however, this is more on a sales or commercial side of things, then you normally have to do more on the sales context in this case. So then you go a bit more into the salesy perspective of making sure that the client really understands the use case and really understands, okay, what's the value of this feature or this product add-on. And the fourth one that I want to share with you is one that I have done as well, is that it's called Conduct a Business Review with one of your clients for a product of your choice. Please tell us upfront which client stakeholders roles we should have, and we are 4 interviewers. So this is around really having this client call as well, but it is more with existing clients, no new stakeholders. It's just a very, let's say, plain business review. And plain, it can be very complex and very, let's say, data-driven. But this is also around, okay, how do you deal with those business reviews? And I heard people say business reviews, that's just, like we just present the results and that's it. like, why do I actually need to prepare? Why do I even need to train this? But you would be amazed to find out how different business reviews can be conducted. This is like a huge spread of people. Like, yeah, it's just huge. And I have seen so many different versions of this presentation and this kind of dialogue, um, and this case. As I said, it would amaze you. And one of the key elements of what I see is the differences, is how tactical versus how strategic is someone going about it. And you can tell so much about that, how they work with their clients, that this is really important for you to take into account. And that's the same as I said beforehand. If you work with smaller clients or with larger clients, you can tell from the kind of how you do those interviews and how you do those cases, if you more work with smaller clients or if you work more with larger clients. And or if you are more on the scaled level or if you're more on the, let's say, high touch model. You can see if you are more reactive with your clients because you have just so many clients, or if you're more proactive with your clients and really trying to be this trusted advisor to your high touch clients. So you can see a lot of different elements of how you're working with your clients in those interviews, that don't take this lightly. Making sure that you really understand what you want to portray and also how you want to work with your clients, depending on the role that you're applying to. Maybe one additional piece of advice before we go into the advice, tips and tricks in general. You will get those pieces of information, so they will send it to you normally a week beforehand. And when they send you this information a week beforehand, you have time to prepare. And what they sometimes ask you is to say, okay, can you please send the presentation and the information that you want to share with us beforehand? So 1 or 2 or 3 days before the actual interview date. Make sure that you do that. Make sure that you keep exactly the track and the timing. So you really also show them, okay, I'm reliable and I have all of this information laid down. But let's go now into the tips. And the key tip that I have is practice the case upfront. And I mean practice, not only once, not only twice, try to practice. Have friends where you practice this with. Have a mirror where you stand in front of the mirror and just talk to someone. And just an imaginary, like whoever the interviewer you see, or the different roles that you assign to your interviewers. Make sure that you practice, because the more you practice, the more confident you get, and the more you practice, the more you can find out, okay, what is maybe not working and what could be working better. And I can promise you, it will be making a huge difference, and it will show, and it will tell the interviewers how much you practiced. And especially when we come to the third part of the interview, where I give a bit more detail into that, they will tell, and it's really important that you can show them what you did to make this interview a success from your perspective. Because even though if the interview is not going well, it does not necessarily mean that you don't get the job. It's way more important that they understand, okay, how do I come about it? What did I do? And how did I practice to, in the end, nail this interview? And what did I learn out of that? So it's more your journey of taking that interview, instead of that is, okay, you do everything pitch perfect. And for that reason, if you can show them, okay, I practiced and maybe I don't know 1 or 2 or 3 things, but I can learn them because I'm eager to learn, then this will count more normally, instead of, like you just being perfect. So take this into account. The more you practice, the better. And not only this, you also feel more confident. Another thing is check the time. I have seen a lot of interviewees that did those interviews, they got completely lost. They had no idea, okay, where on which slide on which slide should I be? And then the interview went, or like the role play went on and on and on and on, and they were in the middle of the interview, in the middle of their slides, and the time was up. And that's so sad. And this is not necessarily only because they haven't timed it well, but it's also the case because someone asked a question as the client and they got completely sidetracked. But in a client call, you can't get sidetracked completely by someone that is just asking questions all over and they have nothing to do with the real content. So making sure that you kind of find the way back within this call, so that you can tell them, that's an interesting topic. It's really interesting, and we can go into more depth. And I have, for example, this and this person that we can also take into that meeting, for example, or we can have this, like as I send you an email afterwards and we can discuss. But now for this meeting, let's focus on the other topics, because we have everyone now here in this call, and now we can really make sure that we cover all the topics that I have on my agenda for this meeting, or that we have on our agenda for this meeting. So really making sure that you keep the time. It's very helpful if you have 3 to 5 slides, whatever you're doing, whatever case it is. I have some slides because it will help you to guide you through the presentation, but it would also help your clients or your interviewers to guide them through the presentation and to guide them through the topics. And so, as I recommend, 3 to 5 slides. The same with the time. If you have 20 slides, you won't be able to do this. You will rush. So don't do that. Just keep the main important or most important points and focus points on those slides, and everything else you can just do by talking. And maybe here also for the slides, as I said, I have seen slides that are full of text. No one can read them. Make them short and make them precise. And that's the most important point. So don't like over exaggerate. Don't try to push everything into this interview. No, make it focused. Better focus on 3 to 4 key points instead of making all over blown up, and there's just no time to really go into the details. The same is true. Don't talk about completely irrelevant things. Try to focus on the key elements. And if you feel that your interviewers, that are your clients in this interview, just don't know about it and they are missing the basics, if that is the case, then send them the information beforehand and tell them, okay, these are these different people. This is the pre-information that I want them to have, because I can't touch the pre-information. I have to go into detail, because otherwise we won't be able to touch upon the details and the most important recommendations that I want to give my clients. So you are in control. Take this control and make the best out of that meeting. Another very important point is listen and approach the customer or your interviewers empathically. What I have seen very often is that a client asks a question and they say, oh, that's a nice question, and then just go on with the presentation. It's not a presentation, and that's the other point that's there. It's not a monologue, it's a dialogue. So make sure that you really see this as a dialogue with your clients, and we work with your clients. So you have to talk with them. It's not a presentation of you just talking for 20 to 40 minutes and just trying to say check mark, check mark, check mark. But it is really around being there with your clients, talking with them, learning from them, being empathetic. If you have the feeling that someone is just off, is not interested in the presentation anymore, is not interested in the content, then ask them, talk with them, try to bring them in and make them feel comfortable, make them feel that they really learned something. And you can also set this intention for this call. What do I want them to get out of this? You can say this even in the beginning. You can say, out of this presentation or out of this call that we now have together, this is what I want all of us to come out of this. This is what I want us to learn, and this is what I want to have the objective of the call. And then in the end of the call, you can say, okay, this is what I wanted to achieve with you today. Was I able to achieve this? Are there any additional questions? What can we do to minimize those questions or question marks that you still have in your head, so that when we now go out of this call, we have everything that we need to go on. So really make this specific. And what you can also do is even more of, like a bit of an add-on. You can, after the call or at the end of this call, you can say, now we have touched upon everything. I made notes. Sometimes you can even say in the beginning, I will be making some notes, so don't be, irritated if sometimes I look not darkly into the camera. So you can make those notes, and in the end, you can say, okay, now I made all these notes. We have those specific next steps defined. So I will send all of this information to you afterwards into an email. And if there are any additional questions, you can just ask me afterwards. So make this specific and make it as a real customer call. The better you do this and the more precise you do this and the more you take control of that meeting, but at the same time talk with your clients, see this as a dialogue and not as a monologue, and trying to really reach those objectives of what you want to have your clients kind of what kind of journey they should take within this call to get to some results, the better you will nail this interview. So there was a lot of talking, but I hope it really showed you what you can do to nail this interview and make this the best that you can do. So let's go on. So let's imagine, you had the introduction, great. You had the panel interview, great. And now the panel interview is over, but it doesn't end here. And the reason is why it doesn't end. It's normally, if it's really well done, they will have a review of the panel and the case. And the reason is for this review to find out how did you go about the process? Why did you do it in that way? And what maybe can you do better? What did you really like? And also, what did they like? And the reason is, and I said this beforehand in that video, is they want to find out how you work. It's not only what you do, but also how you do it. And if the interview did not go well, it's not a complete no-go. It just means, okay, why did it not go well? And what could you do so the next time it goes better? Sometimes they give you a bit of time so you can, calm down, because those interviews are normally a lot of stress. They're normally, or like you're kind of, a bit really into it. So taking yourself out, taking 1 or 2 minutes to breathe, and then go on. And so you can collect your thoughts. They can also collect your thoughts. And then you can talk about, okay, I think this went really well. I really liked how I did A, B, C. But what I think I could have been better is C, D, E or D, E, F. And how I would like to do this in the future is that, for example, I would love to have more knowledge to better understand these kind of different dynamics. Or, okay, I think when you asked that question, I wasn't really happy of how I answered that question, or whatever, comes to your mind. Obviously, depending on how the interview went and how the panel went, this is how you could say this. And this would give them a good understanding that first, you're not, like, okay, I'm just brilliant, or I'm just shy, or I don't want to talk about this. But on the other hand, you're very clear in some positives, but also some improvements. And not only, okay, I can improve something, but okay, I can improve something, but I already know what I want to improve. And this is really helpful. If they don't do this, you can also ask them. You can ask them, what do you think? How did it go? Because normally they share a lot of feedback also in this interview round directly. And it sometimes tells you a bit, like if they like this or if they didn't like your interview presentation, but not always, because normally it's just a very open and honest and constructive phase of understanding what can you do the next time, maybe a bit different. And you learn a lot in these interviews. And I think just out of this, they're already a great, it's a great outcome of learning of how this interview went and how you did go about it. And then what I said, be honest. So really being honest around the space. So it doesn't help, if you say, oh, this was just so bad, everything was bad. That's not confident. If you say, oh, I was just amazing, that's also not confident. It's a bit all over the top. Try to be realistic and do it very specific. And that's what I say here as well. As a customer success manager, you're constantly learning. So show that to the interviewer. Show that you're learning, show that you want to improve, that you want to do it better. You can also ask the interviewer how it went. As I said, be detailed and analytical, and you don't need to be perfect. So definitely don't need to be perfect. It's more about the journey that you take than just the peaks that you have with being perfect. So let's go on and let's have the question round. So the question round is normally also not that long because you had so many questions beforehand in the other interviews. So this is just a large, little piece of info, little piece of time where you just go into some last questions. So normally it is, as I said, last questions. So if they have some open questions they haven't touched upon, they do it there. It's very similar to the other interviews. So nothing specific, nothing more in depth. Normally just answering those last questions. And the same again for you. It's also the chance for you to ask your questions if you have some additional questions that came up while you did the panel, or some additional questions you have open that haven't been asked. That's all the time here for your questions as well. And then maybe one little tip or like some note. What happens sometimes for me is that they ask exactly the same questions that they asked beforehand. And that's normally the case because you have new people in those interviews and they haven't read all of the notes and everything that has been touched upon in the previous interviews. So they are just coming there to help with the interviews and they're completely new to you as a person. And so they might ask exactly the same questions than you already asked, but don't take it, like as a problem. Just, like just answer them as it would be the first time that you would answer this, and just make sure that obviously you answer it in a similar way than you had answered beforehand. So yeah, just be honest as with all of the other interviews beforehand as well. And then, yes, and then you're done. So, congrats to this last interview. Maybe one tiny little bit of note here. Sometimes there are some additional interviews for more senior roles. So, sometimes you will have a senior management role interview, very similar to a hiring manager interview, where you just ask and answer some questions, just have a normal dialogue, which is more than on, as I said, senior management, high level interviews. But this is not always the case. More for the high level roles, more for manager roles. Just keep this into mind if you have those additional interviews. But normally, in most of the cases, when you did this panel interview, you are done for the interview phase. It's done for all the work that you have done. Huge congratulations for everything that you have done until that point. And then it is decision time. So after that interview, they will normally tell you, okay, let's take some time. We will come back to you and we will give you our decision, what we have decided, if you want to make you an offer or if we don't. And obviously, it's for you the same. You can decide now after that panel interview, okay, does it all feel right? Am I confident with that? If yes, great, check mark. I can go on. I'm really excited about this. I'm looking forward for your answer. If not, obviously, you can think about this and you can tell them, okay, I think it's not the right fit. So with that, this was the panel interview. It's a very long video where I wanted to show you everything about the panel interview so that you really have a good understanding of what you need to do to really nail that interview. And I hope that you gain some insights. I can understand or might imagine that some of those case interviews might seem a bit cryptic if you haven't worked in customer success beforehand. But as I said, I'm trying to include some additional information around those interviews and those cases as well in one of the additional seasons and episodes. But for now, take this as some insights when applying for a customer success management role, but also if you want to apply for account management role or sales role for existing clients, the process is very, very similar. So you have now everything around the interview process, and you can now go on and nail it. In the next episodes, I will more go into the negotiation phase and the pre-onboarding phase. But for now, that's all of that information. If you like this video and if you like the information that I share, I would be delighted if you give me a like for this video or if you subscribe to my channel, where I will be posting more and more videos on those topics, but also in general about topics of business and navigating your business and professional life. And as I said, I would be really happy if you support me here and give me a like. Or you can also find more information of how to reaching me and how to subscribe below in the description of the video. Have a great day.